When it comes to what your family eats and drinks, you know your choices matter. You're the expert because you know what fits your life. And getting it right starts with good information. That's why America's beverage companies are sharing more information about our ingredients at goodtoknowfacts.org. No spin, no judgments, just the facts straight from the experts for more than 140 beverage ingredients. Visit goodtoknowfacts.org.
At Sierra, discover great deals on top brand workout gear, like high-quality walking shoes, which might lead to another discovery.
40,000 steps, baby. Who's on top now, Karen?
You've taken the office step challenge a step too far. Don't worry, though. Sierra also has yoga gear. It might be a good place to find your zen. Discover top brands at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
Spanish.
Hello. I'm Christy. I wanted to ask you a few questions. How long have you been in the United States?
There's this video that was circulating on X recently. In it, you can see DHS Secretary Kristi Noem accompanied by federal agents, and she's leaning into the backseat of a car in Portland. She's talking to a man who she says is an immigrant with a sex offense conviction. I asked McKenna Kelly from Wired to describe it.
She kind of opens up this car door and leans over against this man who appears to be at least some kind of like a detained immigrant. And she, on this video, is interrogating him about how many times he's crossed the border. When was the first time he illegally crossed the border? It was 7 years ago.
They go back and forth through an interpreter, but Noem's message is clear on camera.
You also know it's a crime to be here illegally, and you will be prosecuted for it, correct?
Noem is being filmed, not by a journalist, but by MAGA influencer and podcaster Benny Johnson.
Benny Johnson is a historied character in digital media. He used to write for BuzzFeed, where he was fired for plagiarism. And then he kind of had, he was one of the first people, honestly, who had this like canceled to stardom rise, right? Like he had been canceled or been, accused of doing terrible things. And it only made his career grow. And so he really kind of grew to fame when he became attached to Turning Point USA.
Charlie Kirk's group, where he then started doing his Benny show, where he was kind of it was kind of like a meme show where he would, it was kind of funny, but it was news shows, the beginning of this kind of like podcasty news video era. Now he's kind of struck out on his own, still kind of loosely affiliated to the Turning Point Network, right? But he's producing his own show every day, and now getting brought along with DHS Sec Kristi Noem and being used by the federal government, by the Trump administration to pass along a lot of its messaging. Johnson and other influencers tagged along with Noem in Portland, including filming a meeting when she prayed with ICE officers.
And Lord, I just ask that you continue to put a hedge of protection around these officers. Keep them safe, Lord, but that also that you would continue to bless each and every one of them and their families, and Lord, that you would protect the freedoms that we all enjoy.
One question I have in reading your reporting and in watching a lot of these videos, is this content designed to show people what's happening or to create an opinion, create an image of what is happening that may not be fully factual?
Yeah, I think that's kind of part of the purpose of bringing along influencers, right? Instead of a lot of what we saw with Noem's visit to that ICE facility in Portland, they brought a bunch of influencers, right? They did not allow a lot of actual journalists into that ICE facility. Oregon newspapers were reporting that they had been repeatedly asking for a tour of this facility. So the whole reason why you would bring someone like a Benny Johnson is because you know the kind of content he produces. You know that what he's going to put out there is something that the administration sees as supporting their own agenda.
it's there to not just report, right? Because if you wanted to report, you would bring journalists. It's there to convince. It's there to provide evidence, right, for the actions that the administration is taking. We saw that again. I think Benny Johnson and this trip to Portland is one thing, but we're seeing it just across the board with right-wing influencers specifically.
They film, they cut, they tweet, they get themselves on TV. And the administration gets the message it wants into the palms of people's hands.
And it's because you have folks who are, you got to hand it to them, a master at their craft, right, of propagandizing all of this. And I think this is the first time, I think in the last couple of weeks, with a lot of what's happening in Portland and Chicago, we're seeing this ecosystem really, the muscle, like the administration really flex this muscle, knowing the people that they need in order to continue these incursions on cities.
Today on the show, right-wing influencers are trying to sell Trump's agenda. Is it working? I'm Lizzie O'Leary, and you're listening to What Next TBD, a show about technology, power, and how the future will be determined. Stick around. This episode is brought to you by Saks Fifth Avenue. Saks makes it easy to find the perfect gifts and holiday looks that suit your personal style. The holidays can be a lot of things: exciting, relaxing, heartwarming, and yes, sometimes even a little stressful. That's why you need Saks.com. Saks makes holiday shopping easy, stress-free, and most importantly, fun, whether it's for yourself, your family and friends, or even the pickiest person on your list. You can feel confident going into this holiday season, knowing that Saks is there to help you find inspiration, curate a holiday wish list, pick out gifts for your loved ones, and have a look ready for whatever might come your way. Whether it's an office holiday party, a cozy night in, or a vacation getaway, Saks has everything you need. If you're looking for shopping to be personalized and easy this holiday season, then head to Saks Fifth Avenue for inspiring ways to shop for everyone on your list. Have you ever wondered about the digital infrastructure that powers today's biggest tech trends? Interconnected, a new podcast series from Equinix, offers a rare look at the technology driving the innovations of tomorrow. From the edge compute and cloud systems to ultra-reliable networks and everything in between. Through candid conversation with industry experts and visionary thinkers, Interconnected's hosts guide you through emerging megatrends in tech, the infrastructure making them possible, and the connected future they're shaping. They dive deep into the systems behind AI, automation, quantum, and beyond. Join the discussion on how society would not be on the verge of an AI-assisted medical renaissance without the near-instantaneous network of interconnected data systems. Discover the digital infrastructure powering today's biggest tech trends with Interconnected. Follow Interconnected on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Everyone's been talking about AI lately, but face it, just talking about tech trends doesn't help you be more efficient at work. For that, you need the right tools. You need Zapier. Zapier means you and your team can put AI to work and actually reap the benefits, not just talk about it. With Zapier's AI orchestration platform, you can connect top AI models to the apps your team already uses, so you can add AI exactly where you need it. Teams use Zapier to streamline their marketing, sales, IT, HR, and more. Whether it's automatically enriching leads, coaching your sales rep, resolving IT tickets, or something else, you can do it with Zapier. Zapier is for everyone, tech expert or not. No IT bottlenecks, no complexity, no AI hype, just results. Teams have already automated over 300 million AI tasks using Zapier. Join the 3.4 million companies already automating with Zapier and transform how you work with Zapier and AI. Get started for free by visiting zapier.com/TBD. That's zapier.com/TBD. That's ZAPIER.com/TBD. I think it would be helpful to run through like a cast of characters. Who are the big influencers who embed with the Trump administration on these missions or create a lot of the videos that they want to see go forward outside of Benny Johnson? Who else is out there?
Yeah, Andy Ngo is a big one. He is one of the people over the last 10 years who has kind of made a living, right, out of going to protests across the country, whether those were Black Lives Matter protests in 2020 or to the protests that we're seeing now outside of ICE facilities with what the administration is trying to call a violent Antifa, right, and trying to catch folks on their worst behavior.
The elections night protests turned to riots, 3 days of violent rioting in Portland, and it was the first time that I saw groups dressed in black with their faces covered. This is 4 years before COVID. Some of them were waving the black flag of anarchism, some the red flag of Marxism, and within seconds they would ravage one street to another, to another, to another.
There's a kid named Cam Higbee who has also kind of picked up on this as well. Trump called him by name in the Antifa roundtable and seemingly knew him really well.
Please, Cam.
Yeah, I've just got something very short. I'm attacked every time I do my job. When I leave my house to go to work, I am violently assaulted. I've had guns pulled on me. I've been bear sprayed. I've been beaten down. I've been almost killed. So my question for all of you is, how would you feel if every time you showed up to work, masked militants tried to kill you? Because that's how we feel. That's our lived reality.
Nick Sorter, he is also a part of all of this. He himself kind of became the story over the last couple of weeks when he was arrested, right, for a protest outside of a Portland ICE facility.
When they say they make arrests based on observed behavior, in these circumstances, I believe that observed behavior was being a conservative. Just being totally honest with you. You saw the video. There was another video that came out yesterday showing a close-up of what happened, and nobody, even my biggest detractors, cannot take that video and say, I was the aggressor in the situation.
Any charges were dropped. He was not really found of any wrongdoing, but that still became a moment, right, where the administration had to react. And say it's not just the protesters, right, but it's also the law enforcement officials.
Right, police arrested him on a disorderly conduct charge.
Yes. And so it's not just, right, these protesters, but it's also the law enforcement. And they're not doing their job. And that's a reason why we need to bring in the National Guard. So these are folks that have been building this ecosystem for a very long time. They've been tapped into before by the Trump administration, but I think this is the first time I've ever seen it so organized, right?
How did these people become so close with the Trump administration to begin with?
If you just look at the folks in the Trump administration, right? These aren't like career officials, right? These are people
They are influencers themselves.
They are influencers themselves. These are folks who grew up in the same ecosystem, right? These are people who know each other, who are reposting each other. It's not like these people are, it's not like they worked at the same companies, right? Or they worked for the same government officials, even though some of them have. But they all exist in this kind of right-wing bubble community. And so they all know each other. These people are all online. Look at Kash Patel, right? Who is leading the FBI. Dan Bongino, these people are posters through and through, and they understand this ecosystem and network better than anyone. And so they've been there along the ride. They've been reposting these folks. They've been engaging with these folks for a long, long time.
I want to talk about how a piece of content kind of moves through this chain, because I think that helps people who are not in this ecosystem understand how important it is. So if someone like a Benny Johnson posts a video on X about ICE raids or Antifa, what have you, what happens next?
Yeah. So Benny Johnson has, I think, 4 million followers on X. I think that's his biggest platform. So what happens there is that you have all the people who know Benny, right? All these other right-wing influencers who are embedding his videos, who are sharing the videos. They get millions and millions of views. And then by the time when all of these right-wing influencers share, it becomes a viral moment, right? All of a sudden, our eyes are on Kristi Noem,
interrogating this man in the back of a vehicle. And then once it becomes this viral moment, well, then the news picks up. Cable networks like Newsmax or Fox News pick it up. And then not just do they play this video again to those audiences, but then they'll bring Benny on, right, for an interview. And that's what we saw with Benny following Kristi Noem.
We're actually broadcasting to you from the ICE facility here in downtown Portland. The windows have to be blacked out and tarps have to be put up because Democrats keep shooting sniper rounds into ICE facilities. Kristi Noem had to walk the premises today with body armor men standing beside her because the left is so violent here. Every time we came or went, left-wing protesters had to be cleared out of the streets. They spat on the vehicles. They screamed at us. And right outside, Rob, there is a massive bit of graffiti that says, "We own the guillotines. We're bringing them to you."
And then Benny, of course, posts that video online, and the cycle continues to happen. It's this kind of like self-feeding Ouroboros of content that the administration has recognized and tapped into.
I think that part is really important because I think if you are 65 and do not look at TikTok, do not look at social media, you might say, well, like, why is this important? But it's important precisely in that way where suddenly it is on Fox News during someone's dinner hour and they are exposed to this content machine that has been whirring and producing and creating long before it ever got to them.
Exactly. And that's how this gets to everyone. And then that's how the Trump administration is able, right, to justify the actions that it's taking in places like Portland.
When we come back, but is any of this actually changing Americans' opinions?
Life can get a little crazy at times. So if you're looking for a natural way to unwind that can also relieve aches and discomfort, it might be time to try CBD gummies from Cornbread Hemp. Cornbread Hemp's CBD gummies are made to help you feel better, whether it's stress, discomfort, or just needing a little relaxation. Designed to help relieve discomfort, stress, and sleeplessness, Cornbread Hemp's CBD gummies are formulated to work with your body, not against it. And they only use the best part of the hemp plant, the flower, for the purest and most potent CBD. All products are third-party lab-tested and USDA organic to ensure safety and purity. And with Cornbread Hemp, you can count on fast shipping and reliable customer service. Right now, TBD listeners can save 30% on their first order. Just head to cornbreadhemp.com/TBD and use code TBD at checkout. That's cornbreadhemp.com/TBD, code TBD.
Shape the future of enterprise AI with Agency, AGNTCY. Now an open-source Linux Foundation project, Agency is leading the way in establishing trusted identity and access management for the Internet of Agents. The Internet of Agents is the collaboration layer that ensures AI agents can securely discover, connect, and work across any framework. Join industry leaders like Cisco, Dell Technologies, Google Cloud, Oracle, Red Hat, and more than 75 supporting companies to set the standard for secure, scalable AI infrastructure. Empower your company to deploy multi-agent systems with confidence. Is your enterprise ready for the future of agentic AI? Visit agency.org to explore use cases now. That's agnTCY.org. How many software as a service applications are being used at your company right now? Can't keep count? You're not alone. Trellico by 1Password helps you discover and secure access to all of your software as a service apps, even unmanaged shadow IT. Trellico by 1Password inventories every app in use at your company. Then the app pre-populates profiles to assess risk, letting you manage access, optimize spend, and enforce security best practices across every app your employees use. Manage shadow IT, securely onboard and offboard employees, and meet compliance goals. 1Password exceeds the standards set by various authorities and is a leader in security. Take the first step to better security for your team by securing credentials and protecting every application, even unmanaged shadow IT. Learn more at onepassword.com/TBD. That's onepassword.com/TBD, all lowercase. Well, right now, as you say, the Trump administration is trying to sell these actions to the American public. That is largely skeptical. I was looking at numbers from an NPR Ipsos poll. Only 38% of Americans in that poll supported deploying National Guard troops to a major city in your state. That was how they asked the question. And you talked to researchers who talked about kind of the purpose of these videos, where it sounds like it is, creating the illusion of popularity for something that is unpopular?
That's exactly what they said. So I speak to Sam Woolley at the University of Pittsburgh a lot, and he has done some of the best research on influencers and how influencers are used in politics, whether that's in elections or also in propaganda, how nation states use influencers to spread misinformation, disinformation. When I talk to him, now we're in this era where it's not even just amplifying stuff that's already online, right? Using influencers to amplify this stuff, but also using them to create the content and then amplify it. And so they're not just, creating an illusion by boosting misinformation they see online, but they see a need, right? When you have these close relationships with the Trump administration, you know what it is that they need, right? To push their message, to push whatever policy that they need in place. And then you can just go and you can put yourself in a position to create that, that image, that illusion, and then you have the network to boost it.
That is propaganda.
Precisely.
Is it working? Is it changing public opinion?
I just don't know if we know yet. But does it matter, right? Because at this point, does it matter if people are changing their minds? Because we're not close to any kind of election, what is it that folks can, we can look at the disapproval numbers of all this stuff, but how does that actually affect the mission at all? Not too much. Any of this really is trying to carry water until the next election in the midterms, right?
Yeah.
To see how Republicans, react to a lot of this, or maybe this goes into the bucket of things, right, that the Trump administration will have to find out over the next couple of years, whether or not folks buy into the whole thing.
At the same time that this is happening, journalists from traditional news outlets are being barred from covering things. The example of Oregonian reporters not being allowed to the Portland ICE facility Benny Johnson was. And then I wonder what kind of picture Americans are getting and whether it's just a picture that's wildly fractured. Only right-wing influencers giving you one thing, only traditional media giving you something else. It just feels like people are existing in two different realities.
Yeah, and I think that's just shown by the goals, right, of these different folks. As journalists, my goal is to inform, right, to tell the truth, to pursue truth at all costs, whatever kind of high-minded thing I try and tell myself every morning when I wake up. But then also when you look at these creators, their whole purpose is to continue to be able to be creators, right? By making money and being self-sustaining. And when you look at Benny Johnson, the way that he's able to do that is by teaming up with the Trump administration. This week, I think he was in D.C. on Tuesday for the Charlie Kirk Memorial, where he was one of the folks that had a camera in the back filming the entire thing. That struck me as really interesting because that's normally where you would expect like a C-SPAN camera or a CNN camera. But you had Benny Johnson, right, with the Benny Show in the back recording it too. And so for the first time, and I think especially in the last couple of weeks, we're seeing this kind of merging or attempt to merge, right, or morph what it is or who it is that can cover the White House and who can cover politics in the federal government. With Pete Hegseth's Department of War, I guess, trying to say that you can't report on things that we tell you can't report. That's what you do with an influencer. That's called an influencer briefing. What is the outcome of all of this? And right now it's starting to look like if you don't obey these rules, right, you get shaken down and you don't get as much access as the people who are willing to carry water for the administration.
as someone who is a professional journalist and has been doing it for more than 2 decades, it seems like it is very important to point out that last year there was a big drama in which the Department of Justice alleged that Benny Johnson and Tim Pool and other right-wing creators were perhaps inadvertently paid by a Russian propaganda outlet, sort of through another media company, which I feel like if you are just a person watching things on your screen, you have no way of knowing what the standards are of the person you're watching, where the money comes from, and what they themselves may or may not be aware of, whether they are being used for influence operations even beyond their own understanding.
Yeah, there's no laws, regulations, or whatever requiring these people to disclose their funding whatsoever. That was a huge issue, right, over the election. But now we're seeing it's even scarier now, knowing that these folks are so embedded in the Trump administration and could be receiving money from different like non-governmental organizations, different nonprofits, whatever it is, whatever dark money groups. You just have no idea. And it doesn't seem like there's any desire or motivation, right, to regulate whether or not they should.
You wrote a piece several months ago about the contentification of the Trump White House and their policy. And one of the things that I was really struck by in that piece is just the idea that something as complicated and nuanced and difficult, genuinely difficult as immigration policy could be reduced to a short form video. And it just seems like not only a way of distributing propaganda, but also a way of reducing really fundamental policy questions to their basest and least perplexing, complicated selves. I wonder if it just makes us all dumber.
That is the scary thing, right? And if you're on TikTok at all, that's like a huge conversation with people saying, like, right now, I feel like folks are getting dumber. But yeah, no, I think that's the big question. That is the big fear. It's hard to have a nuanced conversation in a minute-long video. It is very hard to have those conversations in comment sections. And that is where, when the Trump administration is trying to deliver these messages, they're focused on these platforms. And even if there was a desire, right, to have some kind of nuanced conversation, which I don't think there is, it's nearly impossible to have unless you, right, try and go on this what we have with like long form podcasts or things like that. But again, it doesn't reach everyone, but I don't know.
What happens as Trump administration allies then gain control of these social media networks? Do they just begin to exert even more influence over not just the production of information itself, but its dissemination?
We're already seeing that. This week, what we saw there was reporting that Meta, Facebook, right, took down a Facebook page that was helping to identify where ICE activity was. The Trump administration reached out, and that page was shut down. Now, if you pay any attention...
That reminds me of something.
Sure reminds me of Murphy v. Missouri and the Biden White House, right? The Republicans have criticized the Biden White House for reaching out to Meta, right, and asking them to remove COVID disinformation and misinformation. And that was a whole discussion. And now we see that happening again. I had a conversation with a source who worked at the White House a couple months ago. This conversation is reminding me of this. And they were telling me about conversations that they had with TikTok over the last 5 years as somebody who worked in Republican politics. And to them, 5 years ago when they were first trying to make accounts for whatever their clients were, they were used to, not being able to post about guns, right, at all, because then their page would get taken down. And now they were remarking to me that the table has turned dramatically. You have these platforms who are excited, right, to have these, or at least pretend to be, or try to convince these Republicans, right, that they're excited to have Republicans on them, and how this just continues to change and flip. And now you're seeing, Larry Ellison and his family taking over
not just, Paramount and all this stuff, but also TikTok. You see all of these big tech CEOs, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, of course. We've talked about Doge so much, and X, and all those folks showing up to the inauguration. We're in a new era, right? Where it's a lot easier, according to Republicans, to be a Republican or a conservative online. And, we're entering this phase where things are changing, and it'll be see what happens with these new takeovers of platforms.
McKenna Kelly, as always, it is great to talk to you.
Great to be here.
McKenna Kelly is a senior writer at Wired. All right, that is it for our show today. What Next TBD is produced by Evan Campbell and Patrick Fort. Paige Osborne is the senior supervising producer for What Next and What Next TBD, and special thanks for this episode to Rob Gunther. Mia Lobel is the executive producer here at Slate, and TBD is part of the larger What Next family. And if you like what you heard, please come check out our bonus episode of The Discourse, which came out this morning. I talked with Slate Money's Felix Salmon about OpenAI's deal with Broadcom and NVIDIA and AMD and where all that money is gonna go, and maybe there's an AI bubble? All right, we'll be back on Sunday with another episode. I'm Lizzie O'Leary. Thanks for listening.